Greetings, 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 everybody! You're watching Smartwatch Tics. We're a YouTube channel on the web at smartwatchtics.com. Takes you right into us. This is the video we talked about making for a while now. It is the quintessential comparison video primarily between the three latest flagship Android standalone smartwatches that incorporate two processors inside of them, a standard Android processor and a specialized one for doing a long standby, what they call bracelet mode. They are known as the Lemfo LEM9, the Kospet Optimus Pro in the middle there, and the Zeblaze Thor5. And we're gonna jump all over the place, help you decide the differences between these and which ones are important to you so you can make a buying decision if you want. Beyond these three, though, and an important comparison, is a little hypothesis I'm putting out that we can either validate or not. The hypothesis is that you guys studied the scientific method, right? We're going to hypothesize that these watches are no better than the ones that don't have the dual processors in them. Now, I'm going to test that hypothesis, and you decide the theory. Is the theory true that these are not nearly as good or equal to the predecessors? Or are these really hot stuff and you got to buy one? To do that, I'm going to do this. Move these guys off. And in the Lemfo category, LEM, we have Lemfo LEF. This is a comparison watch, the Lemfo LEF3, that has the always time ambient display mode, but does not have the bracelet mode. First thing I want you to see is they're both in ambient mode right now. Yes, they are. When I turn this on bright with a similar type of watch face, same on here, set at the same brightness level, you can see they're nice and bright. But they're set to turn off in 15 seconds, and when they do, notice the one on the right flashes and goes into a really dark ambient mode. The one on the left goes off and then lights back up, relatively bright. That's one of the differences already. By the way, later on you're going to see a battery test, and in addition to the LEF3, I brought in its brother, the Finau X7, which is basically an identical watch. At least we thought so until we did the battery test. So if you're interested in one of these two, make sure you stick through the battery test, okay? So the Lemfo line has the flagship LEM9, and I'm comparing it with the LEF3 as an alternative. Now, when you go to the Thor line, the Zeblaze line, they have a whole bunch of Thor4 watches out, and then the new Thor5. So I grabbed the one we've been playing with a lot, the Thor4 Duo. Let's look at the same thing. I'm moving the bands down a little bit so you can see the Thor5 always time display versus the Thor4 Duo and its brightness level. When we light them up, that's how they look like when you're at the same brightness setting, basically, with the full-on smartwatch watch face. And after 15 seconds, they both time out. This one gets a little bit dimmer, goes off. That one flashes and goes even darker. So again, we're seeing that the dual processor watches have a much dimmer ambient mode than the peer in their exact same company line. So we'll be looking at the Thor watches within the Zeblaze brand. Then, finally, and we've been waiting for this, the Optimus Pro. And the Optimus, which I don't have here, but the Optimus is the... Did you see that flash? That flash was a quick adjustment of the time. It moved the time slightly forward. I'll mention that in just a second. The Optimus, the Kospet Optimus line, has the basic Optimus and the Pro. The Pro has more memory, 3 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes of storage, 2 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes for the regular Optimus, which I don't have here. However, I do have the non-dual processor watch from the same company, the Kospet Light and the Kospet Hope. And this is actually the Hope Light. I've taken the bands off of this one and I've slapped in this little connector. We'll talk about that too. But this is basically the 2 gigabyte, 16 gig, I don't know, 2 gigabyte, 32 gigabyte on this one, 1 gigabyte, 16, 3, and 32. Check me if I'm wrong. It's in the specs, and I will be messing up through all this. There's just too many things to keep straight. If I make a mistake, the specs are the correct ones, not what I'm saying, okay? I'm doing the best I can. All right, we are on that ambient display thing again. Let's give you a little bit of view space here. And again, third time in a row, we see that the ambient displays amongst the non-dual processor watches are brighter. And of course, when you fire these things up into regular mode, they're pretty much all set at the same brightness. They've got the same watch face on them, and after 15 seconds, they'll all flip off, and you get to see what that looks like. There they go, there they go. Okay, see the difference? There's a subtle difference in how it works, and there's like an extra filter on here that pushes the brightness down even further on the dual processor watches. So we'll be looking at all three of these. Okay, let me get set up for the next phase. Well, get your little piece of paper to write things down on, because we're covering a lot of stuff. Let's do weight. This thing's set in grams. It almost is washed out. It's so bright. We're going to start with the Optimus Pro. 72.6. I'll read it out to you. Optimus Pro. Now, because this is the Kospet watch, I'm going to also compare it to the Kospet Lite. 71.0. And the Kospet Hope with a wire on it instead of with the bands and holding the wire, totally bogus measurement, 53. Okay, I imagine this is going to be the same as the Lite. There's not a lot of extra weight to the bits that are in the memory. Let's go to the LEM now. The LEM9 weighs in at 75.1. Okay, that's Lemfo. And the LEF3 was the one we brought out to compare with. Much heavier, 100.5, solid stainless steel, much bigger watch. And its peer, the X7, 100.5. These are basically identical watches, we think, till we did the battery test. But in terms of weight, they're the same. Okay, and then the Thor. This is the Thor5. It weighs in at 69.8. Is that the lightest of the three like this? And then it's one of its peers. There's a whole bunch of Thor4 from the Thor4, 4 Pro, on and on and on. 70.7. Okay, so that's just a little bit heavier too. So that's the weight. But what about thickness? That's really something everybody's concerned about. Like I said, you're going to need a piece of paper to write all this stuff down. I'm not going to be remembering what I'm saying because I'm busy saying it. So I'm just going to throw the measurements out there for you. We're looking at Optimus Pro. I'm going to give you the diameter, including the camera. 49 point... Oh, there I am. Hello, everybody. 49 and a half it's coming in at. 49 and a half, roughly. If I go kind of screen to screen across here, 48. Optimus Pro, that's Kospet. So I'm going to grab the Kospet Lite and show you that it's 49 and a half, a little bit bigger. Across from here, it's 50.8. Now the Lemfo, the LEM9, right straight across the edge, 50 and a half. Kind of the same thing from edge to edge up right near the bezel, 48 and a half. And Lemfo is LEF3 was the other one we brought out in the mix, much bigger. I get 49 and a half, really. It looks bigger, doesn't it? And yeah, it's round, 49 and a half all the way around. And then finally, diameter-wise, wow, the Thor5 is going to be an interesting one to measure. Let's measure the small size first. 49 and a half for the screen. But then you got to toss in that big camera bump. And when you do, you're looking at 54 and a quarter roughly overall diameter for that one. Yeah, so that's overall kind of size. The thickness is really what people are concerned on. So I'm going to start all over with the Optimus Pro, telling you thickness-wise, 17 1/3, 17 1/2. Okay, call it about 17 1/2. Okay, that means we're in the Kospet line and the Kospet Light. Now this has got a bump for the heart rate sensor, which pushes at 18.53. Get that right on there. 17.9, 18, basically 18, and without the bump, 17. So that's 1 millimeter or so for the bump on the back. Whoa, okay, we had that big bump here, which includes that bump there, 17 1/2, but there is an edge to it without that that's 15 3/4. Interesting, okay. Wow, it's 16, basically 16 millimeters and 17 1/2 when you account for that middle section. The Hope Light, we're just gonna leave them the same. Then we come to the LEM9, any kind of baby bumps on the bottom here? Nope, straight across. Let's measure. Oh, but it has a bezel now, right? Right at the very edge, there's a bezel on this one. 16 1/4-ish. Little over 16. That's nice and thin. And it compares then with the Thor5, right? No, that's the Lemfos. That's this one. Nice and thin, 15 millimeters. It's a big diameter looking thing, but the LEF3 and the X9 are only 15 millimeters thick. Maybe they got a wider battery in there. Then we get to the Thor5, who's also got this raised bezel, which forces it up a bit, 15.6. I can't really measure the thickness otherwise. It's got a flat back on it. Little bit of a bump on the camera, the sensor, not much. And then the Thor4 is much bigger. Look at this. The Thor4 Duo is 16.65. Did we cover everything? Good. From the Thors, and I've lost my thing there, just a quick look at the bands. The Thor5, the new one, has more holes, and they start closer because there's, I guess, not as much antenna in here. They closer to the watch, so you should be able to get it snugger and tighter for a smaller wrist. On the other side, you're looking like this. Again, this is the Thor5, the new one, and it's even got extra holes here for breathing, I presume, because they go into the same kind of a clasp. So that's what's happening in the Thor line. In the Lemfo line, this is really apples and oranges we're comparing here, but here you go, looking about the same number of holes, but a longer tapered leather band on the LEF3 as opposed to the LEM9. You got that camera addition on, that camera addition on here that you don't on there. And then you've got this appearance on this end with extra breathing holes on the LEM9. So that's a new concept, it looks like, that's coming out. We've got these extra holes on here. That's those guys. And then the Optimus Pro. And compared with the band on the Kospet Light, they are pretty close, identical holes, everything. Looks like we got same bands on here. Yeah. Now, remember, on this line, the Optimus Pro and the Kospet Light, Hope Light, and the Hope, the bands are removable. Totally removable. There's no antennas in here. The watches are waterproof. If you're looking for a waterproof watch, this is probably the line you want to consider because it's the only one that you're going to have that capability. Whoa, stop the music. Wow. As I was in editing, finishing this whole project, all of a sudden I got a box in the mail directly from Kospet with some cool bands specifically made for their watches. So we're going to take a moment because the Optimus Pro and the Kospet Hope and Hope Light are the only ones of all of the fancy ones we've just seen that have removable bands. So Milk it. Why not milk it? Let's do that. Here's an interesting box with, what have we got? Wow, black leather band. Now remember, the original one is coming with this TPU type of a band, right? That's on the Optimus Pro. Easily quick removable, exactly the same size, looks like rubberized, just like the TPU band, but with a leather finish on the front. So you want a dress watch? You ready? There you go. Elegant, fine, leather, dressy. Set whatever watch face you want with it. Nice. But wait, there's more. We've got something in this plastic package that also looks awesome. Let's squeeze this puppy out. Now, of course, you know you could put any band you want to on your watch as long as it's the right size. And I think these are 22 millimeter. Wow, this is your true leather band. Wow. Okay, compared with this one, which has kind of a leather surface, but is still going to protect you from sweat and whatnot underneath. Now we're talking real leather. Oh my goodness. Okay. There. That's what that one's going to come in looking like. And finally, drum roll, in this box, we switch from black to brown. Yeah. Okay, we got the same kind of band like this one, but now with a brown color. Let's put it on. Oh, I really like this one. Check it out. It's got black highlighting around the edges, light stitching, a nice brown, and again, rubberized on the back side, so it's waterproof. Really cool. Where can you get them? I have no idea. It just fell out of the sky. Honestly, no idea they were coming. But I will look around and I will have links for you in the show notes of where you can buy the separate Kospet bands to put on your removable band smartwatch. Okay. Different kind of sealing here on the light and the basic hope. You've got this cover that snaps in and out. It could lead to water intrusion if you have to pop it out very often, and unfortunately you do, because you only have two connectors on the hope and the hope light, and in order to get data transfer over a cable, you have to use the special cable that comes with the hope, but you have to order extra if you get the light that sits inside that connector area here. So you constantly have to pull off and put on the cover, which could affect waterproofness for this watch. So something to consider if waterproofing is important to you. The only brand that has it is Kospet, and these two are a little challenging if you're going to be doing wire data transfer or putting in a SIM card, so you're down to the Optimus Pro is probably your best overall choice for waterproof, water-resistant, able to dunk underwater in an Android smartwatch at this point. Solve the problem for somebody. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see some of the viewers are leaving now. They know which one they're going to get. Okay, cool. With the LEM line, we have antennas in the band. They're relatively stiff. They're non-removable. With the LEF3, though, which is also a Lemfo. I could have chosen so many different Lemfo watches, as you know. So, I mean, just for comparison, mostly for the displays is why I picked this one. It looks like they should be removable, but they're not. There's actually antennas in it. They're non-removable. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail on that. And then the Thor line, come here, Thor4 Duo. This watch also has non-removable, relatively stiff bands that are not going to be waterproof. Although they're getting better at sealing everything up, they're still not quite to the same par as having the bands totally removable. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So, have we got this wired or what? Well, not exactly. We got some wires, we got some docks, and we've got a big mess on the Kospet Hope. Wow. All right. And the Hope light as well. Look at what we're dealing with. We've got this really hard to install and remove data cable. That is how you pass information to and from the watch, unless you set it up to do it wirelessly over Wi-Fi, which I highly recommend. Then you can just forget about all of this stuff because you could just keep this SIM cover on your watch. But if you do use this one, you're going to have a bit of an interference with this one because, believe it or not, yeah, it doesn't go this way, it goes that way. So you got to kind of make sure you got them hooked up right if you want to charge it and use it for data. Wow. But that's not why we're here, right? We're here for the flagship watches. Okay, and this is the Kospet Optimus Pro. And beautiful. Oh yeah, and with the new bands on it. You like? Huh? It comes with a dock. It comes with a really nice dock. It's got this recessed cutout, so you're not going to get it confused with all your other docks. The 4 pins, snaps on, magnetic, nice and strong, hooks up with a micro USB, plug it in anything you want to charge it, plug it directly into your computer for transfer data. All 4 pins are covered. So, my estimation, a big step up in the Optimus Pro for getting us what we really need in terms of data connectivity, but you are stuck with a dock when they're kind of hard to come by. So if you want one at work and one in the car and one at home, make sure you try to get an extra dock or so, because that's what you got with the Optimus Pro. With the Hope and the Hope Light, you've got the 2-pin wire for charging. You got to get the data cable. Comes with the Hope. I know, I'm repeating myself. Does not come with the Light. Okay, you got to buy it extra. That's the Kospet process for charging and data transfer. Now, let's bring in the Lemfo line. In our flagship dual processor LEM9, you are using a dock as well. You've got this nice little dock here. Fits right over the circle, 4 pins, a little tab that fits in a slot so you get the alignment just right. Super strong, holds really well. Micro USB, pretty much the same as what you saw on the Optimus Pro for charging. Okay? The comparison watch that we brought along with just for the purpose of a lot of other things like looking at the display brightness and whatnot to show you the LEF3. It also comes packed with a dock, and it's got the 4 pins and a little receptacle, but LEF3, the LEM6, comes with a wire. And it turns out that that wire actually works. And of course, the dock would probably work on the LEM6 as well. So if you're looking at an LEF3 or an X7, and it comes with a dock, we do have a buying link under the LEM6 video that you can pick up this wire. I believe it's also under the LEF3 and the X7. So you could purchase the wire, have one of these in the car and at work, and maybe just have this by your nightstand at home. So you basically charge it overnight on its dock. Okay, that's the way Lemfo is handling data transfer and charging. 4 pins, direct data transfer. Then finally, we're looking at the Thor5 with the Thor4, a whole bunch of Thor4 line, but we've got the Thor4 dual that we're showing off. And here we've got a specialized cable that is right angle, does not cross about the back, but comes off of the side by the camera. That's our charging mechanism, nice and strong. No dock on this one, but you definitely have that big protrusion on the side. If you wanted to wear it with the charger, loop through your finger and around your thumb and through your nose and back into your upper pocket so you could charge it with a brick, you could do that. It'll actually work. The connection for the Thor4 dual, gosh, I didn't bring that charger over, but you can see it's a little curved charger that fits right on here, and that's in the Thor4 review. Ooh, I just got carefully reminded that for the Kospet Hope and Hope Light with the 2 cables, you don't need this one for charging if you're using that one. That has all 4 pins, data pins, and charging, so you don't have to wire it all up like you're in an ICU ward in a hospital just to get charging and data. Sorry about that. Live and learn. Okay, that's all about charging. What's next? Let's talk cameras. You see these numbers I've written on the tags? That's the resolution of the images from actually taking pictures with each of the cameras. On the Thor5 front-facing camera here, it's a 5 megapixel up interpolated to 8 megapixels. That means it shoots in true 5 megapixels, but when you multiply these two numbers together, you see you get a matrix of 8 million numbers, 8 million individual pixels that are on your screen. This one now, which is the Optimus Pro, has its camera on the side, and it has the same basic numbers related to the camera, 5 megapixels up to 8. And likewise, the LEM9, which has its camera down below, facing at a 45-degree angle, is the same resolution size. So no decision to be made on better or worse camera resolution. The point here is, do you want a front-facing camera, a side camera, or a weird camera? Honestly, when you put it on, it's kind of pointed down towards your belly or your chest on the LEM9. The other ones, now that we were comparing them to, the Thor is 2 megapixels up interpolated to 5. When you multiply that out, you see you get 5 megapixels. So smaller resolution camera, but it's a front-facing thing you're going to use for conferencing and or chatting, and a side camera on this one. You got 2 cameras, but they're both low resolution. On the Lemfo, we've got 1920 by 2560, which again is the 2 megapixel up to 5, as opposed to the 5 up to 8. So lower resolution here. But then the Kospet line, where we've got the nice picture, a nice camera there, even on the Kospet Lite, and of course also on the higher memory Kospet Hope, we've got the same high resolution camera, all of them being on the side. So if you like a little bit brighter ambient mode screen, you don't need the bracelet mode, and you want the good camera, you have these options as well. But remember, the bands are removable, but the waterproofing depends on how much you use that space, and you got to use the extra cord to hook up to transfer files and such. You do have a cord you can just charge it with, which is a 2-pin separate one, whereas this one you have a dock, and you don't have to worry about getting in here except to put the SIM card in once, if that's what you're doing. You don't need access in order to get to the data cable. We got all that covered? All right. Let's twist. One thing I've learned, if anything, from reading your guys' comments is never enough. Whatever I do, it's never enough. So there have been people asking me, what's the difference when you twist your wrist? Which one's fastest? Which one lights right away? Which one doesn't? Do they do it consistently? All right, for at least these 3 watches, I'm going to entertain you by doing that with these all on my arm at a similar angle with the same velocity. You ready? And twist. And then they're going to time out. I'm also checking to see if they're based on gravity or not, because there's some that they say when you twist your wrist and they turn on, but they're really just gravity. So if they're exactly level, they'll start to come on all by themselves, as opposed to actually doing it with velocity. Let's turn it again and twist it. I am not going to even make an interpretation. I'm just showing you. I'm going to let you guys decide. Somebody was out of sync, weren't they? Okay, you're there. Let's let you guys time out. Hello, Optimus Pro. Thank you. Okay, they're all dim. And one more try. 1, 2, 3. There you go. You happy? No, I'm not going to show you all the other ones doing it too. Enough, help. Specs. I know how to get you guys off of topic. Specs. Clear off all the specs and talk about specs. We're going to talk these flagship dual processor watches. So there's got to be a great reason to buy these over the original ones, and that must be in specs, right? How fast are they, Mr. N22? Well, let's find out. I've just spent the last hour running specs on all of these watches, and we're about to show you, starting with this one. Okay, the Thor5. When we hit power, when I press and hold, and I come up with my recent tasks, boom. That is the N22 report on the Thor5. Washed out on the screen, 29,785. Remember that? Are you writing these down? Great. That's the Thor5. How does that compare with the Lemfo LEM9? Get into it the same way. Whoa, 30,379. Interesting. Lemfo's quite a bit faster, huh? Well, I'm sure you're all waiting to know the N22 report of the Optimus Pro is 32,080. Okay, Optimus Pro is the fastest amongst all of them by quite a bit, actually. But it begs the question, how about the non-dual processor watches? Let's check that out. If Optimus Pro is the fastest, I'm going to bring over the Kospet Hope and compare with that one. So, both of them. We've seen that one at 32,080, 31,318. For the non-dual processor Kospet Hope smartwatch. Same memory, same RAM configuration in these, right? Very interesting. All right, the Lemfo line. How does the Lemfo LEM9 compare with the LEF3? We got 30,300 here. We're getting 29,097, 1,000 lower. So quite a bit of a difference. We got a nice bump up on the LEM9 compared to the LEF3, but there's a lot of other Lemfo watches we could compare with, and they all have different N22 reports. Then we look at the Thor line with the Thor 5 coming in at the lowest of all of these, 29,785, and the Thor 4 Dual way down there. Get my spec off of the screen. Uh-oh, 28, did it say? Oh, I just wiped it out. Well, you saw it on the screen, the 28 something. So the Thor 4 Dual, unfortunately, is one of the lowest one of the ones that we tested here. And that, but look at how bright the screen is when it's in the standby mode. There's a lot to be said for balancing everything. So all in all, the Zeblaze watches have lower scores than the Lemfo watches, which pale by comparison to the Kospet watches as far as N22 benchmark testing. One last thing I want to cover, at least as far as I remember now. There may be more tacked on at the end when I'm finished editing if some other stuff comes up. But I want to talk about phone calls and using these. Now, none of these watches, because they are all using Android 7.1, none of them will do Bluetooth calling. It just doesn't work yet for Android 7. If you want tethered calls with your phone, you are in the wrong video and you just wasted an hour, because you need to go with an Android 5.1 older watch that has the Bluetooth calling icon in it, okay? That's important. You're not going to get Bluetooth calling out of these, but you are going to get SIM calling, sorta. All of these watches in Android mode will provide SIM calling, messaging. Yeah, you like the ring? I'm going to talk about that soon too. Oh yeah, it collects all kinds of data. My deviation in body temperature at night, my heart rate variability, how many breaths I take on average at night, and the whole sleep cycle stuff, but go away, not yet. When you're, where was I? When you've got the SIM card in there, you've got messaging and phone calls and data, right? You can turn data on to do cellular data and stuff in Android mode. These guys here with the orange tags, the dual processor ones, when you put them in bracelet mode, Not good. They turn off the radio for your cellular. You're basically completely disconnected from the phone line. So if you're wearing one of these watches, it's the same as if you were wearing one of these watches and you just powered it off, okay? And you turned it completely off. Nobody can reach you unless you've got voicemail set up somehow. You can't do a third-party voicemail type of a thing or any of that kind of stuff as far as I know. And when you boot back up into Android mode, it's got to go out and reacquire the cellular all over again. So just think about it. If you are planning on using a SIM card in a smartwatch, you're most likely going to want to have it on all the time. And if you are, you're probably going to take advantage of using the ambient mode, that's the always time mode that's built into the watch, in which case you'd never go into bracelet mode. Is my hypothesis making sense now? Is it possible that the older watches are actually better overall, if you're going to be using it for phone calls, than the new flagship dual processor ones? Is it possible this whole dual process bracelet thing is just a gimmick? Well, we haven't looked at it yet, have we? Let's do that next. To get into the bracelet mode, there's a couple of ways you can go over into the app drawer and you can hunt for a long standby in here. Boy, that was smooth, wasn't it? Or the easy way is you press and hold the back button. Now, you get this display on all of them, and you get this little gear here. Before we go further, let me show you that that gear has a different always time. I know we've covered it in the reviews, but some of you haven't seen it. We're going to set this up with the always time off so you can see how well it works in the twist your wrist thing. When this is off, there's 3 screens we're going to get into in ambient mode. The one of those screens that is dedicated to time will act literally like your watch would on the Android side in the case with that turned off, in that it'll have a display, but after a short moment, it goes off. And in order to get it back on again, you need to twist your wrist, and then it goes off, okay? If you had that switch turned on, it will stay on. That one's set. Let's do this one, the Optimus Pro, press and hold. There's the little thing at the top again. We're going to make sure that is off. And come back out of here and give it the check mark. And that's going to go into its mode. And then we do the same on the LEM9. There it is. Notice it's different, right? And that is already turned off. That's good. And we're going to give that a check mark too. So while that's happening, I'm going to come back over here and just turn these on. And by golly, I'm going to have to be pushing the button. There we go. There's different layouts of how they're displaying the time. Here you have heart rate, step count, calories burned, time, date, and everything on it. No battery indication though. Here you've got step count, calories burned, no heart rate from what I can tell, but big digits. But they're in color, which makes them hard to see outside. Which one would you prefer? Or would you like this one? Sorry, I'm getting into the other screens there. So you've got basically, how can I do this? These 3 different time screens. There. These 2 are similar, but still slightly different. Thicker digits on here, and you got calories. The only one that's got the actual heart rate on that same screen is right here, but it's really, really teeny. Whew. Now, the rest of them I don't have to go as fast because it'll stay on the 2nd and 3rd screens all the time. Always on. And here's how they lay out. You've got basically your step count, calories burned, distance traveled, right here in blue, red, and green circles with white writing. Harder to see against a bright background. Here you've got the display that way and that way. So in terms of ease of visibility, if you're into step counting and whatnot, look at them far away from the camera. That's going to be your best bet, the Optimus Pro. Then, one more push of a button, and you get to the heart rate function. This is really the only reason I'd say the bracelet mode is better than just being in the ambient mode on the smartwatch side, is this continuous heart rate. They each are showing the digits differently. Again, the Optimus Pro in my book wins out in terms of brightest, best visibility, digits, and whatnot. And none of them are giving us errors right now. So if I strap it on in a way that it's over my skin and I give it a moment, I'm not going to go through that. That's too hard to try to get them all lined up and doing it. But if you've got them on properly, you should be able to get a continuous heart rate out of each of them. It will show you the totals and the dates and times when you've done it down below. However, none of this information is transferred over anywhere. You don't get like a map, a graph, a table of your continuous heart rate information. It's just for when you're using it live. But man, if you're using it live, if you're an interval trainer or you're trying to stay in a particular zone, you're not going to get an alarm for that, but you are going to be able to get the data live while you're looking at your wrist, as long as you're not outdoors and it's too bright, because these are actually pretty dim right now as well. Much dimmer than the regular screens in the smartwatch, or in the, you can tell I'm getting tired, in the, smartwatch mode, not the bracelet mode. One last thing to cover that I know of, and then we're out of here, but for that I got to switch us back. And for those of you timing everything, let's see if I can get at least 2 of them going at the same time. I'm going to press and hold. Holding, holding, holding. And they're rebooting. And now, of course, this one I have to do separate because I just didn't have another finger. But we want to get it booted back up into smartwatch mode. Holding. There we go. Hey, you get to see all the different logos. Pretty cool. And I'm letting it run. I'm not just cutting it and editing it, so you can honestly get the feel for how long it would take you to get out of your bracelet mode and back into a regular Android smartwatch to check if you had a phone call. But you can't check if you have a phone call because it doesn't notify you if you missed one because the watch was off. I guess you'd have to call voicemail and see if anybody called you. Yeah, it's got some more work to go. Okay, that one's the first one up. Beat that one. Of course, this one was late starting, so there you go. They're all back up again. And the third thing in my hypothesis that you may want a regular Android watch and as opposed to the dual processor one is in fitness. If you're doing any kind of fitness, you know by now that these ones that involve distance, like running, walking, not the indoor run, but riding a bike, maybe hiking, those ones where you accumulate distance, you really want a watch that's going to base that distance computation on GPS. And on all 3 of these, so far now, we understand there's a fix in the works. There's going to be an app that you'll be able to install that will change everything I'm saying, but it ain't here yet, and I don't believe it till I see it. All of these are giving you your distance data based on your step count as opposed to GPS. So that means not only the distance traveled, but if you're using it for maintaining a certain pace, any of that kind of stuff, you're not going to be accurate. Nearly as accurate by basing it off of step count than it would be off of GPS. We know that this technology exists because we see it in the regular watches. Here's the Thor5 Dual. Well, you saw what I just did over there, didn't you? Let's go back into now an outdoor run. I hit go, and the first thing it's going to tell me is I need to go to location services and turn on GPS. We didn't see that on these watches, did we? Now it's on. Come back here and hit go, and it's saying it's going to go out and acquire GPS. Now it's indoors, and it would take a while. When it locks up, oh, guess it did. Okay. You get the countdown, and you begin. Now it looks similar to what these looked like. Oh, wow, it's back to go. It should have kept going. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, it looks similar, gosh, with a 15-second timeout, except the blue thing is flashing here. See that? And how about this one? Okay, that's still going. Maybe I just didn't hit it right. It's got its timer going. And when I slide over here to stop, that says finish. This says long over. If I hit finish, it stops it. If I hit this, nothing happens. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm off the screen. If I hit this, nothing happens. I have to press and hold. The circle goes around it, and then it stops. You have the same save or delete. Everything else is pretty much the same. It's just the way that app operates. And this app, which is integrated in the watch, ties into GPS, and you get GPS data out of the original Thor4 Dual with a slightly brighter ambient mode than you get on the brand new flagship Thor5. And with that said, I'm complete. We've measured them, we've weighed them, we've smelt them, and we've tasted them. If there's anything I missed, put it in the show notes. If one of you guys can answer it, or I can, we certainly will. I may do some more battery test information for you. And definitely give us a thumbs up on this one, okay? A lot of work on this one. And if you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're not, you may want to consider it if you've got hours and hours to waste. These reviews tend to go like that. And yeah, we will see you again soon. I got buying links for you for all of these in the show notes as well. If you haven't bought yours, really appreciate you using our links. Yeah, we get a little bit of a financial reward when you do. Get confirmation for getting the latest flagships from my sponsors because they're happy they're selling watches. It makes everything work in this whole business of YouTube blogging. Okay, we will see you again soon. Again, thanks for watching. Okay, I get it. Along about now, some of you are going, God, this is just like the Game of Thrones, or this is worse than the Avengers Infinity Wars ending. He didn't talk about watch faces. What am I going to do? I was going to buy the watch based on the face. Exactly. I'm going to show them to you. Yes, Alrod, I'm going to show some of your custom faces on here as well. And remind all of you guys that the custom faces you used to get are still out there. They're available. Check the show notes for links to Alrod stuff, to the custom watch face designer stuff, all of it. Yeah. Well, what do these watches come with? Actually installed. The Lemfo line, here's the Lemfo LEM9, has this really fun graphic watch faces. It's premier face, and it's a nice one to have on. It's constantly changing. It's got digital time. It's a little bloomed out on the screen right now because we've got the brightness set a little high on the watch. When you press and hold, you can check out the other ones that are installed. With the gray color, you know, you have a blue bezel or a gray bezel. This one looks really nice, all in all, on the watch. An analog style. And then you have one that's a little more sports fitness appropriate with digital time and your date, believe it or not, your power level, and it looks like your step count on the outside. Now, this one I usually have on when I'm using it because it's a nice, easy to read digital, and it's just pizzazz. And that comes on the Lemfo watches as well. Then you've got this fun little thing. You saw all the dots and things moving as it settles down to the actual time with hours and minutes. And yeah, look at the second hand going. What happens when it gets to the 60? I've always wondered and never seen. And no, it shoots right back over there. Imagine the HTML code behind that one, guys. Huh? Here's another one. Kind of a classic busy watch with the illuminated light shining on it as if the sun were up in the corner there. Here's one that brings in gold and lots of layers of numbers, so you can never forget that it's 25, 5 after the hour. Here's a bright, bold one with big hands on it. This is one of their trademark ones. I've seen that before. You've got the date, and time, and all sorts of goodies. Again, lots of fine definition with the lines in there. Here's a different style of design with gold on it. All these so far are the installed watch faces. It was that beginning one that said Lemfo, but the rest of these are unbranded, so they don't actually have the name on it. There's a really nice nighttime subtle, right? Just gold. It's actually in gold. Dates down here, rather soft. Then you've got the full white one if you want to use this thing as a flashlight. This is a good one to point out the edge-to-edge screen on the Lemfo watch. It's coming really, really close, right to the edge. You can tell that with a bright colored screen. Here's another one. This one with circles that are intertwining with each other, going in opposite directions. Digital time in the middle. We've got one with the date, analog, and some very slowly moving, but they are moving gears down there. Another one. A lot of watch faces on the Lemfo. Here's red. Okay, yeah, pretty bold, bright, easy to read time. Oh, okay, interesting. This sort of looks like some other ones you can download from the server. That's very creative. You have things at angles now, too, which actually, when you're thinking from coding, is a little bit tricky to do that. Another one with moving gears. I know, I've lost a lot of you. Only the diehards who like watch faces are still with me, which is why this has been tacked on the end. So again, thank you guys for watching, and bail out whenever you like, but if you just want to have this on to check them out, here you go. We are still in the stock Lemfo faces. Now we're getting into the custom faces, and I got a whole variety of them in here. This is, I believe, the A section. I just grabbed all of the A's in Alrod's premium faces and dropped them in here. We'll just run through to show you a couple. Yeah, because there's a bunch of them, a whole bunch of them. And they are, of course, easily installable. We've got videos and there's descriptions all over the web on how you install these watches. Here's from the Avengers, actually, as we speak. So we'll leave that one running. Stay up now, okay? And we'll move on to the Optimus line. What does Kospet send you out of the door with? As its premier first face is this one. And a very similar one here. And these things are really cool. And then, of course, we got the new brown bands on the watch, too. So you could really make some fun combinations. The bezel, as you notice, is much more subdued here than it is on the Lemfo line. On the LEM9, you definitely have all of your information and your buttons are labeled and whatnot. Here, it's very subtle in a reflective bezel, but you do have the information on the screen. You also are pretty close to edge. These are well branded. It says Kospet there. Another one with their logo on it. All these are stock watch faces. Here we got some blue coming through. Different kind of design. Yeah, we get into a nice night watch. This is just blue highlights on here. Unbranded as far as the name goes. These that we're seeing, this one in particular, has been around since the very beginning of Android watches. That one too. These are old styles that were probably downloaded from the XDA forum years ago. There's your big white one, and if it's not too washed out on the screen, you can really see the edge-to-edge capability of the face. And now we're getting into the collection again of custom faces. Here's I think the B section, or D or something. Anyway, I grabbed a group of them and threw them in here just to give you, yeah, we're in the Bs, right? There's the Beatles, okay. Few samples of Alrod's faces shown off here on the Optimus. That one works well with the brown band. And then finally the Thor5. Buttons are on the left on this one. Remember, it's on the opposite side because the camera's over here. These are the stock faces that come with the Thor5. That's your first one. Now remember, the dot has nothing to do with the faces. That's Floating Toucher. That's the app that I install that when you tap it, brings up a bunch of things that you can do, including listing all of your apps and stuff like that. So it's a launcher of sorts, and it floats, so that's why it's there. But the faces themselves look like this. There's another interesting one. They're unlabeled circles, unlike the LEM9, which had date and power level and such. Here's a bright yellow. Again, non-removable bands on this. That's definitely making a statement and easy to read. Digital watch. And what else have we got? Another curved one. All right, here we go with a step count and power level, and I don't know, something else. But they're all full, so, oh, I see, it just points up to the numbers. They're just taking creative license, making that arc. Here's a typical one that you see in a lot of the pictures for this watch and stuff. It's showing your power level and weather down here, as well as step count and heart rate. That's a busy one, but it has everything. A blue one now that says Zeblaze. There we go. We're getting into some branding on these watches, finally. They're putting their own name on it. Here's a simple watch with some circles that are representing stuff. By the way, if you see the power levels are jumping all over the place, sometimes they're going lower and sometimes back up to 100%. I'm charging them in between. So don't rely on looking at anything in this video to judge what the power drain is like. Here's an interesting face. I think this one comes from the watch developers community, if I'm correct. It's an astrological one. I grabbed one off of there to make sure they work. To get to that, it's really easy. Just remember full Android watch, okay? These are full Android watches, but no S on the end of it, fullandroidwatch.com. That'll get you into that section. And then here's a bunch more that were competition watches that we ran when we did a giveaway of the Thor5 Dual recently. Not that recently, it's been a while now. These were all the different competition faces in here. I think some of these are Alrods and some of these belong to other folks too. This is one of the best representations I've ever seen of that flywheel that really looks like it's spinning and oscillating back and forth. Excellent, excellent design. And a few more different ones in here too. That's creative. So there you go. You've seen the custom faces that are on the watches, as well as the stock faces that came with it. So for the diehards that are still with me, let me give you my opinion on all of this. These are nice, really nice watches, but I don't see any purpose for the standby mode other than using it for the always-on heart rate sensor if you really want to be able to glance down and see the actual heart rate. Beyond that, having to boot out of the Android watch and back into the bracelet mode, and even longer out of bracelet and into the Android mode is time-consuming, challenging, and not really worth it. If they could fix it so it's a quick thing, or even better yet, when it goes into ambient mode, you know, when it times out, instead of bringing up just a little analog watch face, if it could be those 3 different ones that you could cycle between or set up ahead of time, and it really went into the other processor's low power mode during that time when the watch is otherwise off, and if the phone calls would still be in the background and could bust through so that it would automatically put you back online to answer a phone call, or perhaps even other notifications, especially texts, WhatsApp, all those other things, then we're talking. But for right now, having this hard and fast Android or bracelet mode, and when you're in bracelet mode, it's basically your Android watch is turned off. That really doesn't seem to be very efficient or effective. So given the fact that the other watches that are out there that are non-dual mode do not have the bracelet mode, but have all sorts of cool capabilities, all of which are supporting these ambient mode always time displays, and some of them are really, really super bright. And the fact that all of these guys are dimmer than all of these other ones, well, if you're going to use this outdoors, and you're going to rely on that ambient mode, I'm thinking you probably want to go with a watch that doesn't have the bells and whistles of the bracelet mode built into it, because the trade-off is you're getting really, really dimmed down ambient mode in the Android partition, not even just talking about the bracelet mode. So what would I take home with me? Which watch would I really want to be with? either the Kospet Hope or the Hope Lite, honestly. If I lose this thing and I don't need it, or if I use it and I transfer all the things over to it one time and then I seal it up, and from then more, I hook it up wirelessly, to my computer or whatever, and I rely on just a 2-pin charger to keep it going, with the memory, with the removable bands, with the waterproof, with that really nice bezel that's just void of everything, some subtle marks on the inside. The camera on the side is fine. It's high resolution enough for me. It matches the big boys, right? It's the full 5-megapixel camera. That's what I'd go with. Just got a lot going for it. But that's me. You guys all have your own opinions and your own reasons for choosing what you do, and totally respect that. My job is to bring you the information you can use to make that choice. Thanks for being here.